Espérate. I forgot what episode this is.
Let's ask them. They don't know either. Surprise!
Oh my heavens on earth. I think it may be the 18th. Ay, Dios mío. Ay, Dios mío.
We are usually very prepared. Have you missed us? It might be episode 18. It might be episode 17. It doesn't matter, you're here with us. The two Latin sister queens. Ooh, 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 ooh. Shout out to Richie. Richie used to call me, my sister, and Rosalind Latin sister queens. And it wasn't because we were from Queens, because we're Brooklyn, but Queens because I think that he saw in us three Karamalitas trying our best to live a life with faith and integrity. So shout out to our friends. You know who you are. Welcome to the Perez Sisters mini celebration at the beginning of Crystal Sage Wisdom episode
18, mi gente. Ooh. So my instinct was right, but I still had to. But then I second guessed myself, and I had to go prove it.
Did we wake you up yet? These are our friends. You may have seen one or the other guest star in other
Videos
and creations. A little bit of sound healing sazon for you. Have you missed us? Because we've missed doing these weekly episodes with you, but we haven't been so on target lately.
No, we have not. We certainly, life has grabbed us by the bootstraps and has had us on some strict scheduling.
I thought she was going to use another expression because around here we use this other expression, life has grabbed us by the choch balls.
Dude. You know, I didn't even think about that in my head as I was saying that, but I guess you did.
Welcome to what we like to call our Botanical 2.0 edition, home edition. We're moving into the fall season. Congratulations to everyone who has started a new school semester.
God, that's right. College or just regular
high school,
back to school.
Or any type of
anything.
kid, little kid, big kid. We're always, is proponent the right word? I was going to say that, learning and education is something that we support so much. And even though we're big kids out of school, whenever there's a little course in something that we are interested in, we will do it. Like not too long ago, I signed up for the Tony Robbins' wife, Sage, was hosting something. I signed up for it. Why not? Like, even when you think you know everything, we could still benefit from the vibe.
Yeah.
Right? The frequency, specifically like someone like Tony Robbins and his wife and Dean, that my sister has adopted as her friend.
That's my friend.
One day we might
Shout
meet
out
them.
Dean. Shout out.
Shout out
We're
Dean.
friends, we just don't know it yet.
And Tony.
For like years.
Tony has been my get up in the morning friend, Tony Robbins, like for 10 years plus. Whenever I would have those, especially when it starts getting colder outside, that you don't really want to rush to get out of bed because it just feels so right and snugly in the covers. You know who pops into my head? Tony Robbins. To this day, talk about creating a new programming that on those days where I want to just stay and forget the world, Tony Robbins pops into my head. Get up! You gotta get up right now! You gotta do it! You gotta.
But I think that you bring up a great point. Like sometimes when we really follow certain people that we maybe look up as mentors or teachers in some degree or the other, even if you'll never meet them, even if you just read their books, it doesn't matter. Like you're still learning and receiving all these beautiful insights. But you bring up the great point of sometimes it's really the vibe, like there's been so many like classes that maybe I'll jump into. Maybe I don't love everything they say. Maybe I don't resonate or even agree with everything that's coming out of certain like classes or formats, but sometimes the vibe is really all that is needed, that boost of energy.
And let me tell you, we're getting closer to Tony Robbins and Dean and that family, because 2 years in a row, without giving too much information, we've been in a hotel where people who were also in that hotel were there attending his conference. And boy, have we received earfuls. We have seen excited community members and exhausted community members,
God.
really exhausted. So,
Very
what our takeaways just from being spectators outside of it
observers.
is that they're really learning something. It's a lot of information. It's a long weekend, but they all seem energized. And I have to believe, I want to believe that part of it is the vibe and the tribe that you start meeting and co-creating, because the vibe is so important. And here in New York City, sometimes the vibe está podrido.
Sometimes,
Sometimes
a lot of times.
at
these
8 o'clock
days.
in the morning, someone would have already done told off 10,000 people.
It's too early for
Too
that.
early.
Sometimes, like I don't. Sometimes I wonder where people
early.
wake up
So mad.
so ready, so fired up, just ready to go so early. I'm like, my
start
brain
fighting.
cells are just beginning to connect, and others are already fighting.
That's when I want to do the community service of just gifting someone a little tea or cafecito. You don't want cafecito for your boost? You could have a little green tea and get a natural little boost that way, but a positive boost, not one that's
A
going
calming
to
boost.
create. Maybe those people need kava tea on the second thought.
We need to, yeah, no, nothing that's gonna actually.
Nothing that's going to
amplify.
elevate and amplify those
Excuse
stinky
me.
things. And we have to say one of the reasons that we haven't been around is because we've been having to take family matters up a notch. I think that you may have, if you've been keeping up with all our videos, there was a home edition where we did from Mom's house. We almost did a hospital edition. Our mom has been in the hospital for a few weeks now. Thank you for your prayers. Please send more to her, to us, because it has been a full-time experience. And it's layered with so much. Like, part of it is that it's a passage of life, right? Where when we were little itty bitties, Mom was taking care of us. And now it seems like, you know, she needs us to be more supportive, and sort of we're seeing sort of like that role reverse, but happening faster than any of us were prepared for.
Express, I would say.
Very express. We've been experiencing types of anguish and hardships emotionally and physically that it just, I mean, everything looks different, you know, no matter how many times we've visited loved ones, or even when we had our father in the hospital and being with him up until his last moments, like, everything just feels different. There's no cookie cutter way when a loved one is sick, ill, or maybe beginning their transition. It's difficult, it's challenging, it brings out the best and sometimes the worst in people. And I'm referring to the outside little circle, right? That starts bringing in, and it's almost like it creates an opportunity, you know, like in our family, we live up to the stereotypes. We really don't really see each other unless it's a wedding and no one's really been getting married.
Or a funeral.
That's where we've been seeing them.
That's ultimately how, you know,
the funerals.
it's been kind of for us. And I think that this process has been, you know, a very humbling one, to say the least. And, you know, there's been very particular dynamics about this experience with our mom that has been very different from what we went through with our dad, and even other loved ones, that has been even more challenging, that perhaps in other videos we can get into. a little bit more deeply, but it's like so much is happening all at once, and that's not even including your internal storm, and that's also happening all at once. All the different triggers that is that you're feeling in just one day. Anything from, the trigger of just being exhausted, the trigger of being in. For me personally, one of my biggest challenges throughout the last few weeks is just being in a hospital. Like, I feel like when you go into a hospital, it literally just feels like such a separate world from life. It just feels like you get zapped into this.
Portal that I don't necessarily want to spend too much time in.
No,
And
you're not even breathing
we've
air.
already been there
There's
for
no
3
window.
weeks. Ugh.
It's such an imprisoning type of feeling, and I have so much compassion for patients and people within these places that have to have such long stays, and can really don't have access to even just fresh air.
Yeah, that's true.
Because let's face it, the natural elements are so important in helping us ground and just relax and calm. And I get to go in and out of the hospital, and I'm still struggling throughout the day, missing the bulk of the day, being indoors like that. Like, it does something to I have so much like challenge around that, right? But so, you have like the physicality, the exhaustion you have with the back and forth, the fact that so much of your life either gets halted or it gets squeezed. Because obviously, and for any of you who are experiencing this right now, or have experienced this, or will experience this at some point, you don't just have the responsibility of taking care of your loved one. You have other relationships and other responsibilities that are also important, that don't just stop existing because one element is now dominating. So you're so kind of wake up one day and you feel like you're in this like pressure cooker, right? And that somehow you just got to figure out how to navigate it.
And there's no choice. You just have to navigate it.
You got to get up and go, no matter how you're feeling, no matter how scary it is, whatever it's triggering, right? But then at the same time, you have to remind yourself throughout the day as things are being triggered out, like, to find ways to manage them. So, like, for example, how have you been able to, just in these last 3 weeks, because it's been a journey, mi gente, it's been over a year of different components, but just in these last 3 weeks, what has helped you to sort of like just ground whenever you feel like you're in a heightened place emotionally?
A couple of things. I'm going to give you 5 little things. I've had to reduce my coffee intake to sometimes the most minimal, and sometimes I have replaced my coffee with just starting with some bone broth, because being in and out of the hospital is, 1 second, let's just take a tiny little pause.